really shocked. We're trying to figure out what this means. So let me just start like right off by telling you that your marriages are safe. Your marriages are safe. There is no realistic possibility that marriage equality is going to be changed at all. We have two really strong, really solid Supreme Court decisions that are really well reasoned, that are strongly based on our U.S. Constitution, on principles of equal protection and due process that are just rock solid. And there's a concept in the law called stare decisis, which is that the court respects its own precedent. Bless you. So I just want to tell you that right off the bat. It's really important. I wrote this Huffington Post piece this week that has like gone crazy, and everybody. Well, I wrote it because I posted something on Facebook saying it's going to be okay. It was basically a statement that the National Center for Lesbian Rights put right on out within hours of Secretary Clinton's concession, kind of reinforcing that you don't need to race out and get married, that marriages are safe. So before I move from that point, does anybody have any questions about that?
Can
you
comment on how NOM has risen from the dead?
Oh, please.
And saying that, oh no, it's not.
This is our strategy. Yeah. Thank you. The National Organization for Marriage. Right? Oh, I know. They were like, no, this is our strategy, and here's our plan, and here's what we're going to do. And here, let me say what can happen, because I don't want to be too like rosy and reassuring here. Like I don't want to. What absolutely can happen is that the Supreme Court takes how many, Judge Judy? Like 87 cases a year or something. Really, very few cases a year. So the real damage, in a sense, like to not the status of marriage, but to like all of these other rights that we hold dear, to, for example, public accommodations discrimination. Like all the real damage can happen at all these other lower courts, right? Because this is where the president, let's say his name, the president appoints all manner of judges to all manner of courts, federal courts, not state courts, federal courts, and a lot of discrimination actions are decided at the federal level. Specifically, there are actually Illinois is safe, of course. Fabulous, very smart. There are 30 states. There are 30 states that don't have comprehensive discrimination protection. So Illinois, of course, you do. You have protection against employment discrimination, public accommodations discrimination, against based on sexual orientation and gender identity. So you're living in paradise. Except women. So what happens is that for people who don't live in states with comprehensive employment discrimination protections, they have to count on federal law, right? So now there have been many cases that interpret existing federal law as protecting as existing federal law saying that sex discrimination includes discrimination protections based on sexual orientation and gender identity. But it's not hard to imagine a proliferation of judges, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, Your Honor, that could easily find otherwise. That could say, I don't think that if Title VII says sex discrimination is forbidden, I don't think that it's a stretch to say that a conservative judge could see that sex discrimination doesn't include protections against discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. So that's something that we have to be vigilant about. This public accommodations discrimination stuff, these RFRAs, what we know Pence for in Indiana, right? Pence is the most homophobic governor by far. He's the most homophobic statewide elected official, period, right? Period. What is that? End of discussion. Exactly, right? So it is not hard to imagine that there is going to be a real proliferation of these RFRAs, of these Religious Freedom Restoration Act. I can't even say it with a straight face, for sure. Because that's where there's room. I think that's where there's room for the conservatives to gain ground. So I don't think that there's no question that our freedom to marry is going to remain nationwide. I think the question is, how are they going to abridge those rights? Are there going to be more Kim Davises? Are there going to be more people emboldened to not issue marriage licenses? And are there going to be, one of the things you'll see in the book, I write a lot about whether you choose to get married or you don't choose to get married, how very important it is to have your estate planning documents, your wills, advance directives in place. And we see with these emboldened homophobes, one of the reasons why that's so important. I will tell you, in my practice, I've had a lot of examples, including just 3 weeks ago. I had a couple guys. One of them had like a shrimp allergy. Went to the hospital, and the nurse was like, "Let me see your marriage certificate." Your marriage certificate? I called my mother. I'm like, "Mom, did you ever in your life have your marriage certificate on you? Like ever? You know?" Yeah. So of course, in that moment, everything was fine with these guys, and here's why. I had done their estate planning documents. They had in Florida, it's called a healthcare surrogate. What is it here? Healthcare proxy, designation of healthcare power of attorney. Thank you, Gold Star. So they, of course, they didn't have their healthcare power of attorney on them in that moment, but they did have. There's a company called DocuBank, and it's in the resources in the back of the book. There's a few similar companies where you can scan your advance directives to them. You get a card. It has your partner's name on it and like a little PIN number. So wherever you are in the world, if you don't have that big freaking envelope of all your stuff your lawyer gave you on you in that moment, but you have your card. I always tell people keep it next to your health insurance card because you get it into the hospital. That's like the first thing they're looking for. Like, I don't pay for this. So put your card, put your DocuBank or whatever. Like I said, I think there's some other companies, but DocuBank is the oldest and largest. It's DocuBank, the oldest and largest of its kind, and they've done a lot of LGBT-specific marketing, so I love that. And so you can make sure that your stuff is accessible. So these guys were just calling to tell me, A, somebody asked for our marriage license, B, we had our stuff accessible because I had that little card, the card had the PIN number, and we were able to call. Actually, you could call or you could go online. You could put in your PIN number, put in the fax number wherever you are in the world, and your documents will get sent to you immediately. So it's so important, especially in this climate of what the hell is coming, we don't know, but certainly a lot of I hate to call everybody a homophobe because I don't want to think that every Trump voter is a homophobe, so I don't want to say that. So certainly we see a lot of discrimination. There's been a lot of people have been emboldened, right? And so we absolutely want to make sure that we're vigilant and having our ducks in a row so that we are never questioned wherever we go, right? So tremendously important. And then, to the point of these RFRAs, we do need to be vigilant about this. And, I think it's a hard concept for us, like in this room, to connect with, because I think we all think, those of us who live in metropolitan places, we think, okay, well, if I can't get flowers from you, I'll get them from you. I've been sort of joking, this is not funny, but I've been sort of joking with people like pre-order your wedding cakes, you may not be able to get it for very long. It's easy for us to sort of joke about these things because we've got a million places to get our little wedding cake. But, let's remember that probably not too far from here, and certainly not too far from where we live in South Florida, there are lots of communities where there's like an place to be your photographer, and place to make your wedding cake, and place to do your flowers. So we want to give no quarter to people who say that it is okay to discriminate based on your sexual orientation, your gender identity. And I have to just share, this is so name dropping, but it's just such a good point. So last week, Martina Navratilova was honored by, I know, right? I know, like being an athlete, it's shocking, but we were chatting and she made the greatest point, and I want to share this because I love it. Feel free to use it with attribution. Feel free to name drop as well. So she was saying that she was having some argument on Twitter. I didn't realize that she's so she's such an activist, you know, and a social media sort of presence. But she, I guess, gets in these real, you know, arguments on Twitter. You know this, you guys? You know.
She's massive on Twitter.
Is she? She's massive on Twitter. So I love that. So apparently, she made this great point. She made this great point. I like the cute girl there.
Those are my volunteers.
Right?
Volunteers.
Nick needs a sweater. Somebody's getting a sweater. Nick, you gotta conform. You're not conforming. Yeah. So no, but anyway, Martina's point, which was so good, was I guess she was arguing with somebody who wanted to make her a wedding cake. I mean, she's already married, but somebody who theoretically would want to make a wedding cake. And she's like, well, would you make a cake for my birthday? Like, I'm a lesbian and I have a partner, so like, what's the diff? You know? Anyway, I just think that's such a great point, and so feel free to use that. Because it's just it so perfectly encapsulates how absurd this argument is, right? So anyway, so those are some things to think about. What you don't need to think about is will my marriage be invalidated? You don't need to worry about that. If you're married somewhere else, I'm going to pre-answer questions that I've gotten, so you don't have to worry your pretty little heads about it. If you married like in Canada or some other place, but in Canada, it's like we can see it from here, right? Is Sarah Palin going to be the Secretary of Interior? Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, so, but if you married in Canada, you don't have to get remarried here. Like your marriage is valid. And just anywhere where wherever you married, if it was legal when you entered into that marriage, it's legal here. You don't have to worry about it. And so, yes, right.
Anywhere in the world.
Anywhere in the world, if it was legal.
If it was legal.
If it was legal. If you got, right, exactly. If you got married in your like cousin's backyard, you know, cute ceremony, maybe, you know, if you didn't have like the proper papers to get married in Spain where it was legal, you just did a cute little ceremony, then no, then you need to actually get married under the law of some place. Yeah, thanks for asking, clarifying that. Now, so you don't need to rush and get married, right? Everyone's like, we have to get married before election day because magically everything's going to change on election day. You don't have to do that. Now, I will say the one exception I have to kind of give a shout out to, and again, I hate to be too reassuring, but I also hate to be urban alarmist, so I just got to like keep it real. If you, and this is a big issue for us in Miami, if you are in a binational relationship with someone who's undocumented, right, you might want to think about solemnizing that relationship. If any of these threats are remotely true about rounding up undocumented immigrants, it gives me chills, then that would be, I think, a reason to probably like hop right to it. You know, it doesn't have to be election day, excuse me, inauguration day. PTSD from that. But that would be something that I think you should consider doing. If you have any friends who are in a situation like that, I would have that conversation with that. So here's what concerns me. So many people are so now fearful, and regardless, so excited by marriage that they're jumping into these marriages. And so, and I've been seeing this now. I've been practicing law for almost 20 years. My practice has mostly been focused on the LGBT community. As I always say, we make and break gay families. Hello, welcome, come join us. Or no pressure. We're talking about marriage. You're going to be okay in a Trump administration. I mean, with regard to that. Anyway, so for ever since there have been any kind of relationship recognition at all, I've been seeing in my practice people like getting all excited, you know, going out to gay pride, having a cocktail, getting like their civil union, their domestic partnership, getting married, and then coming into my office like 5, 10, 20 minutes later saying, what do you mean I just give up half my 401k? Okay, like, what do you mean? What do you mean my kid? Where is she? We were just talking about your kid, right? So your kid is, I forget, Hillary. Be like, oh my gosh, English Congress position with the center Halsted. So you know, I've had folks who get into relationships and they have children from prior relationships, super shocked that those intentions to provide for those kids are compromised by marriage, right? When you get married, your spouse has automatic rights on divorce, on death. You know, it's serious stuff. So for years and years, I've been sort of on the road telling people, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Now, it doesn't mean don't. It doesn't mean don't. It just means know what you're getting yourself into. That's all. Just know what you're getting yourself into. And so, having this conversation with people, you know, all over the world, I was sort of located by this really fantastic editor who works at the New Press, which published my book. She also teaches undergrad at the University of Maryland at Terps. So she was freaking out because she was seeing all of these young kids just kind of bouncing down to the podium after her queer studies class. And they're like, well, don't get married this weekend. She was like, don't get married. She's like, look, these marriages are real. And someone needs to write a book about like what marriage means and doesn't mean. And so that's kind of how this thing, she found me, because this has been my drumbeat, you know, just know what you're getting yourselves into. I mean, and we've seen so many serious consequences from marriage. Many that we fought for, of course, you know, that we were psyched about, like getting military benefits, that's great. But like, I keep hearing awful stories like bankruptcies from the tax bill, because your income taxes went up so high and you didn't know that was going to happen. So again, not saying don't do it, just like talk to the accountant first, like see what your taxes are going to be if you get married. You know, think about, we were talking about sort of what happens when you get married a little later in life and you've got sets already. You know, what are you potentially sacrificing in the event of death, in the event of divorce? So just like get your ducks in a row, that's all. And so initially the book was going to be just a legal guide to LGBT marriage. That's kind of what the publisher wanted, that's what they asked for. And then I went off to the Berkshires, where the entire Miami Jewish community goes in the summer. And I was there last summer, and my mother is talking to all her friends. Oh, Lizzie has a book, and Lizzie's book, and Lizzie's writing a gay marriage book, and Lizzie's book on gay marriage. And she's telling everybody about this book, and it's just enumerating all the things you need to know if you're going to get married, if you are already married, what it means, what it doesn't mean. And all her friends were like, I wish my son would have read that book before he married that bitch. Literally. So that's why the subtitle of the book is Legal Guide to Marriage, Gay and Otherwise. I fought for the end otherwise. So it's like, it's about us and also them. Because it's universal, right? I mean, marriage is great. Marriage is marriage is marriage. Not so much. Marriage is marriage is marriage. I wanted to make sure that we were still primary, because of course we can probably be blamed, right? Like we have not, most of us, not grown up thinking that marriage was like a realistic thing that we were going to see in our lifetimes, right? So I mean, I'll just speak for myself. It wasn't like I was sort of paying attention, you know, to my parents married for 45 years and saying like, I wonder, like, you know, what's that mean? Like, what's the consequence of this or that? Or like, I never took it on board. I think a lot of us did. We just did not expect, you know, that this was going to be right that we were going to get at this point in our lives, and we will be keeping it. I did want to make sure that the book was very much focused on our community, and also because there are things that are different. For an example. Many of us, when we get married, have been with our partners for a very long time. And as somebody who, as I said, I make and break gay families, the making part, lots of fun, adoption, surrogacy, estate planning, prenups, awesome. The breaking part, divorce, this. All the years that I litigated, we had an adoption ban in Florida for 33 years until 2010. So I kind of came to the marriage litigation really late. I was really what kept me up at night was that people couldn't friggin' adopt kids. That's what freaked me And so all the years people were like, oh my God, you're a gay activist, like you must really be like obsessed with marriage equality. And I was like, forget marriage, like give me divorce. You know, that's what I wanted, right, Your Honor? We see what happens when couples break up and they don't have access to family court. Couples who've been together, I mean, I have a file cabinet full of these cases. Couples who've been together for 10, 20, 30 years, and maybe all the assets are in one guy's name, and then the other guy is like managing the domestic sphere and you know, division of labor, it's a real thing. Couples do it, but he doesn't have assets in his name and gets the boot with no rights. So now what happens? That same couple, been together, in this case I had not long ago, 23 years. A doctor and the landscape designer. And all the assets in the doctor's name. Landscape designer, none. So they get married. They're married 3 years. Break up. That's not a 23-year relationship. That's a 3-year marriage. And one of the things that was so hard about this book was writing it for a national audience, because estate and family law is so different, state by state. This stuff is really state specific, but there are lots of things that are really universal. So it is very universal, and this is something that's really universal, which is that in divorce, marriages. Sorry for my back. It's so rude. Excuse me. Marriage in divorce, assets are divided by the length of the marriage. Spousal support is determined based on how long you've been together. So date of marriage, date of separation, these are all really important things in dividing up assets. So if you've been together for 20 years and married for 3, guess who's not getting any spousal support? You know, guess what the period of time that the assets are looked at. So if this doctor guy had a 401k that when they got together was nothing. My guy helped him he cushioned his whole universe so this doctor could go out. I mean, we've seen this, right? We've seen this. I don't want to be sexist, but we've seen this dynamic play out before. So my guy made it absolutely possible for this doctor jerk, to be the success that he is. And then what happens at the end of the day? It's a 3-year marriage. So my guy gets nothing. Nothing. Now, what they could have done to change the default in the law is a prenuptial agreement. And I'm impressed that I talked this long and I haven't talked about anything else. Yeah, that's right, yeah.
I just want to make sure you
Please.
hold the mic close.
Oh, thank you. Look at what a difference that is. Thank you. Troy, for amplifying my message for me. Can the people downstairs eating at Whole Foods hear me? Gay and otherwise. Okay. So you know, and I don't like to start talking about prenups too soon, because I do think people all think of prenups as one thing. They all think of prenups as like, what's mine is mine, what's yours is yours, everything that we accumulate is separate, and then we waive all rights to spousal support and everything. Now, I practice collaborative law. It's a big movement. I'm certain that you've got a lot of folks here that practice collaborative law. It's sort of a different way of resolving disputes, especially divorces, where you don't think of the world as sort of one pie, where the bigger your pieces, the smaller my pieces. So I've been trying to do these collaborative prenuptial agreements, which can look very different than that standard prenup that you think of what a prenup is. Because if this couple would have done one where they could have said, hey, guess what? We recognize we've been together for 23 years. And, you know, and if this doctor would have recognized that when he got together with my guy, his 401k had $17,000 in it. And now that they are breaking up, it's got like 1 point something. When they married, it had like 900,000 something. So how much does my guy get? Rather than half of that, the difference between the 1 point something and the 17,000, you know, my guy gets like $40,000, you know, which is half of what it was, the increase in value of the 401k in their teensy little 3-year marriage. So a prenup could have modified that. Could have modified that default of the law. And I don't know. This is why I like to have local attorneys. Maybe I'm looking at the judge to see if she knows the answer to this. I don't know if postnuptial agreements are allowed here in the way that they're allowed in a lot of other jurisdictions, which is like a prenup, but once you're married already. Many jurisdictions allow you to do postnuptial agreements, which is just a prenup once you're married, and it's safe. And again, it doesn't have to be used as this kind of weapon. It could also be used as a way to make fairness. It could also be used as a way to give honor to that relationship that you had before you solemnize it through marriage. So find that out if that's something that would be of help to you. And I've got, as I say in the book, a lot about that. And you know, I guess the other thing, and I want to leave a lot of time for questions, and it's a few minutes to 8. You know, the other thing that I'll just say, sort of about this material, is that I think it's really important to assemble a team, and I'm a big believer in a team. You know, when I wrote this book, I was like, this is going to be the cheapest lawyer's time you'll ever buy. You know, I want you to read it, and for it to help you ask the right questions when you go see somebody to talk about your specific circumstances. But I also think it's really important to highlight issues that you could talk about with an accountant, with a therapist, with a financial advisor. No one is going to do all the things on your team. And so it's good to just, even if you don't need those professionals right now, know who they are. If you get that big fat tax bill that you did your TurboTax or your H&R Block, and all of a sudden, oh my goodness. So, because if you're married, you have to file your taxes jointly. Let me say that again. If you're married, you have to file your taxes jointly. That's a shocker for a lot of us. Now, it doesn't mean you have, there's 2 ways to file your taxes. There's married filing separately, and there's married filing jointly. You have to file your taxes together. For the most part, my tax preparer colleagues tell me that for the most part, you don't save money when you file married filing separately. But I just want to put a fine point on that, because I've talked to so many people who are like, oh, well, we don't file our taxes together. Like, you have to. That's the law. So one of the things I'm the most proud of in this book is that I pulled together these 14 cameos, contributions from people who are people from all over the spectrum, from all over the country, who've written about, as I said, I have a piece from a tax preparer, from a financial advisor, I have lots of pieces from different lawyers. And so I think you get a sense. I have a great piece from a therapist, and so I think it's really important to get a kind of a holistic sense of what this awesome institution is that we fought really hard for, and to enter into it deliberately. That's my fantasy. My fantasy is that we somehow, like, I don't know, rehab this shabby institution of marriage where we have so many neighborhoods that our communities move into, you know, like that we really sort of, I don't know, gentrify, I guess is a bad word, but it's got a lot of connotations. But I mean, that's my fantasy, that we do marriage different, that we do marriage better. I've got way too many clients who are not sterling examples of that. And you read about some of them in the book. I have some names protected for everyone's privacy, but I've got some narratives in there that will bring life a little bit to some of the material that can get a little dry. But I really want us to do marriage a little bit more deliberately, not just to do it because we can. There are so, I mean, one of the reasons that I think marriage was not a given for a lot of us in the movement. Some of us just were not on the marriage, some of us still are not on the bandwagon. And there are a lot of reasons for that, and I talk about it. I've got a whole section on, you know, reasons why you might not want to marry. And I have a few references to the political aspect, right? I mean, it's hard to be a feminist and not to look at the historical the institution of marriage and to not see where it's come from, what marriage was designed to, how it was about ownership and control of women. So it's hard to be a unilateral marriage fan. Really, for many of us, what we were really hoping we could do would be to decouple so many of these rights and responsibilities from marriage so that more people could get what we call these goodies, right? The reason that so many of us marry, even when we're together for a long, long time, but we still marry, is so we could get those goods, we could get those rights, we could get that marital deduction. We could get, as I was talking about taxes, there's a marriage penalty, but there could be a marriage bonus depending on your income. So for some people, that was a reason enough to do it. All these goodies, to provide health insurance coverage for their partner at work. That's the reason a lot of people get married. So, I think for many, the hope was that we would maybe take some of those rights and decouple them from the institution of marriage so that more families could protect themselves. Single moms, multi-generational, intergenerational families, polyamorous families, people who choose to be non-monogamous on whatever level, but still have loving, committed relationships that don't have to be solemnized by marriage. So marriage is not for everyone. I wish it didn't have to be, because there were so many rights and responsibilities. 1,500 rights and responsibilities come with marriage. The federal government did some accounting, general accounting office did an accounting that 1,138 rights and responsibilities come with marriage, and there's some 400 or 500 for state related. So there's a lot that marriage brings, and there are also a lot of rights and responsibilities that marriage can compromise. The folks in this room this might not be your issue, because most of you, I think, for the most part, are quite young. But I will tell you, Amy mentioned I'm the co-chair of the National Board of SAGE, Services and Advocacy for LGBT Elders, and we see a lot of folks who are losing their government benefits because they got married. A lot of benefits that you get from the federal government are based on your household income, right? So we're seeing, and it's not just older folks, it's lower income individuals who get certain benefits based on those incomes. And then if you get married, you could lose those benefits, or they could become drastically reduced. And this is all kinds of people. I've got a couple, they've been together for 42 years. They come to my office to update their estate plan, and they're like, oh my God, we've got the worst news, we got married. I'm like, what do you mean you got married? Mazel tov, 42 years ago, that's awesome. They said, well, we didn't listen to your advice. There's some quote I had given in the newspaper. Like I said, I've been talking about this stuff for a long time. They said, oh, you gave that quote, and look before you leave, and we didn't. And what happened, one of them was a veteran, World War II veteran. Yeah. Right? See where this is going? They get married, and he had a prescription drug benefit that he was eligible for because of his income. He lost it because they got married. Now, of course, as he said, I still would have gotten married. I just wish I would have known, because he had just a whole drama about that, meds and getting hurt. It's just like he didn't line it up. So I have a great section from the guru of military law. Anybody who's an active service member or a veteran, there is really great stuff from this amazing attorney. He's a civilian military attorney, that's the thing, Bridget Wilson in San Diego, who submitted a cameo in the book. So I'm really proud of that, because there is a lot for veterans to know before you get married, and again, if you're already married. So with that, it is 8. I've gone on long enough. I want to take your questions. We've got some books as well. I think we've got like 15 or so books to sell. If anybody would like, they're $20. And I'm happy to stick around. I don't have anywhere else to be. So if you have questions I'm happy to take your questions. And then also, if you have I find that in groups, especially in communities where people don't know each other, sometimes they're embarrassed to ask their personal question. They think it's a stupid question, even though there's no stupid question. Although really there are stupid questions. When I think of there are stupid questions, I think of I used to give a talk every year at this social work school, and for many years I was the first gay person that most of these people had ever seen. And in 2002, somebody asked me, "Can you get HIV from a water fountain?" So, 2002. So I thought, maybe I'll ask you a question. Anyway, but like I say, happy to take your questions. Also happy to stick around and take your questions one on one.